dulcet tones of the Thursday Night Football theme on CBS and the NFL Network. Another season of Thursday Night Football kicks off tomorrow night in Arrowhead with a big-time AFC West matchup between two undefeated teams, the Broncos and the Chiefs, and the man who will be calling that action, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show, Jim Nantz. Hello, friend.
Hello, my friend.
How are things there in Kansas City?
Things are great. Beautiful day here. The city of fountains. Big fan of KC. It's going to be a raucous scene tomorrow night, no question. One of the real loud stadiums in the world in any sport, probably the loudest. And, man, they are frothing at the mouth to have a chance to start blitzing the Broncos and Peyton Manning, and it's going to be wild. I mean, for this early in the season, there's such a rivalry between the Chiefs and the Broncos, and the Chiefs coming off of that performance down in Houston. I think they really feel like this is a great opportunity to show the league and show the nation tomorrow that the Chiefs are about to enter a very exciting phase in their franchise history.
Well, if they're only able to treat Manning and the Broncos the way they treated Brady and the Patriots last year to force the Patriots to move on to Cincinnati, that would be welcome, because that's been the one thing that the Chiefs have just not been able to do since 18 showed up in Denver, is beat him and try and get past him and get this division crown. And tomorrow night would be a great opportunity to take that step, Jim.
No question, and I think they believe that it's time for a changing of the guard in the AFC West. I'm not saying that's what I believe. I think that's what Kansas City and San Diego are both thinking. But, the Broncos just don't lose divisional games. They've only lost one in the division since Peyton came to Denver, and that was on a Thursday night game at home against San Diego a few years back. But, everybody wants to make inroads on dethroning Denver. And for Kansas City, there's not going to be a better chance than this one. I mean, you got the Broncos were in a very, very physical battle on Sunday. I was there for that one in Mile High. And they're coming in here like both teams are on a short rest. But I saw firsthand the Broncos came out of that game pretty nicked. Peyton didn't have a whole lot of time to throw, and he had pressure on him constantly in that game. And that's something that's a big specialty for this Chiefs defense, led, of course, by Justin Houston. And I think they really believe that they're going to be able tomorrow, with all of that noise, that off-the-chart decibel level, trying to set new records. I think they're really ready to go in there and stir it up.
Now, in speaking with Peyton prior to that game that you and Sims called on CBS on Sunday and this game tomorrow night, how are you finding 18, Peyton Manning, now with what everybody believes to be a closing window of opportunity, Jim?
Well, that's the thing that I think we're all, one of the real reasons people are going to be interested in this game tomorrow nationally, is to see what Peyton looks like. I think a lot of people tuned in last week to say, just to be able to see, was this the same guy that was in the postseason last year? It was battling that thigh injury, and wasn't throwing the football like the guy the year before who had thrown 55 touchdowns, much less the guy that had started off at a similar pace in the 2014 season. Here's the thing, there's just, and I'm not trying to dodge it at all, the question, but there's just not enough evidence at this time for anybody to make a fast conclusion. He's dealing with an entirely new scheme here. You know it. And Rick Dennison's come in as his coordinator. Gary Kubiak runs this whole, zone blocking, scheme, and heavier emphasis on running the football. And it's like learning a whole new language, for some players. Not for Peyton, because he's the smartest guy out there figuring this stuff out. But that was their first week that the first game that the first team had ever played. Evan Mathis was a late signee during camp. Emmanuel Sanders didn't play in the preseason. He was out with the hamstring. So, you're going against a Baltimore defense that has a lot of credibility, and they didn't make you look good. That's what Baltimore can do. So, point is, I think we need to see another couple of games before anybody starts saying, wow, Peyton's not fitting into this offense. He could come out here and, tomorrow it might look completely different than it did last Sunday.
Well, the idea, though, Jim, is also that maybe that this offense, he had to be sold on it by John Elway to say, look, this is how I got my titles at the end of my career, and I had to buy into it despite everything that I did in my Hall of Fame career. and that Manning has had to buy into it at this late stage of his career, and that privately he bristles over that. That's the conversation that a lot of people are having, and obviously one game isn't enough of a body of work, no doubt about that. But did you sense any, certainly compared to the Peyton that you've seen prior to games over your entire career, any difference in just his demeanor at all?
No, I did not sense any frustration. I think that everyone knows this is not going to be a Denver approach like it had been in recent years when Adam Gase was the coordinator and Fox was coaching, where he was throwing 55 touchdowns and setting the records in a season. They're going to outscore everybody. That's not going to be Gary's approach. And I sensed, just being around Peyton, that he's buying into it. I didn't see anything that would make me believe otherwise. And yeah, you can go back and talk about what Elway did at the end of his career, and suddenly you had a running back like Terrell Davis, and of course Kubiak was the coordinator and calling the plays for John, and it all ended with two Super Bowl titles his last 2 years. The one thing that is different is that Peyton never had the kind of an arm, and listen, we all know Peyton is on that Mount Rushmore. He's always going to be in the discussion as one of the greatest players in the history of the game. His arm was never what Elway's arm was. He didn't ever pretend that he was going to have, a rifle for an arm. Elway, even at the end of his career, he could still throw it a long way. That's never been necessarily Peyton's calling card to begin with. He's never thrown the tightest spiral in the league. He's found just ways to beat you, standing on the line of scrimmage and surveying the defense and instantly knowing where the wrinkle or the soft spot was and taking advantage of it. He's beat people with his brains for many years. And so, I, like you said, and I think that's the best way to put it, 4 quarters is not enough of a body of work to draw any conclusions. I thought, and this was something that Phil said at halftime, we'd actually discussed it at halftime before it was presented on the air that way. I thought he looked not quite as sharp as he did at the start of last season, but he didn't look as off as he did at the end of last season.
Jim Nantz,
somewhere in between.
Jim Nantz joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. In the 5 minutes I have with you left, I'd love to talk with you about the anniversary you just celebrated at CBS. 30 years, Jim.
Well, I'm surprised you knew that.
Oh,
Thank you for that.
Of course. So it was.
Yeah, it just was on the 14th of September. 30 years ago, I walked into that studio for the first time and took a seat at the anchor desk next to Pat Hayden, now the great athletic director at the University of Southern California, one of my dearest friends in life. And I was 26 years old. CBS was coming on the air with a Notre Dame-Michigan game. Brett Musburger was on site there in Ann Arbor at Michigan Stadium.
Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback in that game.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And Brett came on the air, and I was looking at this giant rear projection screen behind our set, and there he was introducing me to the nation. We got a new guy at CBS, and he comes to us from KSL in Salt Lake City, and it suddenly dawned on me, Rich, he was talking about me. I had been absolutely nerve-free in the auditions. I was one of 5 who had auditioned a couple of weeks before. I felt totally at ease, but that moment when it was actually live and for real, and I'm looking up, Brett Musburger's about 8 feet tall on this giant screen behind the anchor desk, and of course I'm turned to it, and I just had one of those moments like, oh my gosh, I'm not even sure I can get the words out, and I was just anxious for him to kind of put a period on it so I could kind of get the whole thing started.
So how quickly did you find yourself in the Tower of the Masters for Jack Nicklaus, Jim? Was that
well, that was
right
what,
away?
8-9 months later.
Yeah.
I got to host the studio show for college football all that fall, and then I did basketball during the NCAA tournament and regular season with Raft, who's now come full circle. He's my partner again with Grant Hill. So Raftery and I did the NCAA tournament. I hosted the Final Four as Brent and Billy did the games. That was the Final Four where Purvis Ellison led Louisville to a title over Duke and Coach K's first Final Four. And the next week I was at Augusta, and there was Jack Nicklaus holding a putt at my hole for birdie at 16 to win that epic 6th green jacket.
That was your first year on the job at CBS.
That was still 26 years old. I was still a couple of months shy of turning 27. That was my first year.
And then you're going to be calling the Super Bowl 50. Coming up.
It's got a nice round number to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, Jim.
I mean, it's just beyond belief. I mean, every time I see a promo, I kind of pinch myself and say, we're actually going to do that game.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, Rich, it's 77.4 miles from my door, from my house to the parking lot at Levi Stadium. It's like a home game. Not that has anything to do with anything, but I guess if I elected to sleep in my own bed the night before the Super Bowl, this would be my one chance.
Oh, I thought you were saying there's a party at the Nantz house.
Well, there definitely is, man. It's all week long.
You've got a pool.
And you better be there.
You've got a pool and a pond. You decide who gets the pool and who gets the pond.
We have no pool. It's too cool where we live to have a pool. You'd never go in it.
Okay.
But
all right.
we have plenty of other fun things to do. I've got a little bocce ball court, which I hear you're quite good at bocce. So we'll find things for you to do.
The bocce's word is on the street, is what you're saying, Jim.
It's really popular, man. It's on demand, and you got to come down and see it.
Hey, Jim, again, congrats on the 30-year anniversary. There are so
Thanks,
few people
Rich,
in this business.
That. I appreciate it very much.
No, you bet. You deserve every kudo you get, and I'm looking forward to the call tomorrow night. And another season of Thursday Night Football with the network and CBS hanging out
Well,
together.
we're very excited, all of us at CBS, about teaming up with all you guys from NFL Network. It
Awesome.
was a tremendous partnership. It's going to be fun.
You too. Take care, Jim.
All the best, my friend.
You bet.
Thank you.
That's Jim Nantz joining us from Kansas City, where they are fired up. I mean, the people in Stone Street is going to be on the show on Friday. Eric Stone Street of Modern Family. He's on Friday, and he knows in order to get to where they want to go with Andy Reid, winning that division is step one, and in step one of that starts tomorrow night.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.